247 Zulu, Persian Gulf International Waters. The electronic warfare officer aboard USS Abraham Lincoln reads his display twice, then a third time. Targeting emissions, not surveillance targeting, coming from the Chinese formation 12 nautical miles off the port beam. Everything about this encounter is professional, legal, and calm, so why are they painting a carrier with targeting radar in the middle of the Persian Gulf at 02:47 a.m. in the morning? The answer to that question is not what anyone in Washington is saying publicly, and it is not about the radar at all. The contact appeared 6 hours before Abraham Lincoln arrived. That detail did not make a single Western news report. It should have. Two People's Liberation Army Navy warships, a Type 052D destroyer and a Type 054A frigate were already holding position in the central Persian Gulf when Carrier Strike Group 3 began its approach. They were not responding to Abraham Lincoln's presence. They were waiting for it. That distinction changes everything about what this encounter actually was, because a Navy that responds to your arrival is monitoring you. A Navy that was already in position before you arrived was expecting you. And a Navy that was expecting you had a reason for being there that had nothing to do with your schedule. What was that reason? 12 nautical miles away, inside the Combat Operations Center of the Holhot, a plan officer already knew the answer. For 4 decades, the Persian Gulf has functioned as an American strategic lake. The Carter Doctrine of 1980 declared it explicitly. Any attempt by outside forces to gain control of this region would be repelled by military force. For 44 years, no outside power had the naval capability and the strategic competence to position itself in these waters and simply remain. China now has both. And if you are still watching at this point, you already understand something most people reading this morning's headlines do not. This is not a story about 2 Chinese warships. It never was. It is a story about what those warships were doing while everyone was watching the ships. The surface picture was straightforward. 2 professional naval forces, international waters, legal posture on both sides. Abraham Lincoln's commanding officer maintained course and speed. No challenge was broadcast. No engagement posture was assumed. Standard procedure for great power naval encounters in shared waters. But the electronic picture was not straightforward at all. Abraham Lincoln's passive sensors were building a comprehensive picture of the planned formation, their emissions, their radar modes, their communication signatures, their sensor sweep patterns. Standard procedure. Both sides do this in every encounter. Both sides know both sides are doing it. What was not standard was the targeting emission that appeared at 02:47 and lasted for 11 seconds before disappearing completely. 11 seconds. Deliberate. Documented. Then gone. Not long enough to constitute a hostile act. Exactly long enough to be impossible to ignore. The electronic equivalent of a hand, placed briefly on a weapon that is never drawn. The message was not a threat, it was a demonstration. China was telling every intelligence analyst who would review this encounter's logs that at 12 nautical miles in the central Persian Gulf, the Holhot had a fire control solution on USS Abraham Lincoln, and chose not to use it. In 30 minutes, Abraham Lincoln would enter the approach corridor toward the narrower waters to the west. The plan formation had not moved. The geometry of the encounter was beginning to resolve into something that the operations officer aboard Abraham Lincoln had not fully accounted for. The Chinese ships were not positioned to observe the carrier's transit. They were positioned to document it. Every bearing change, every speed variation, every sensor activation and deactivation, every communication pattern. The plan formation was building something far more valuable than surveillance footage. They were building Abraham Lincoln's operational signature. At 4:01, the Type 054A frigate Zhaochuan launched a Harbin Z-9 naval helicopter. Standard maritime patrol behavior in international waters. Completely legal. The flight path was not standard. Instead of climbing to patrol altitude and holding a surveillance pattern over the plan formation, the Z-9 flew a direct bearing toward Abraham Lincoln's formation at 500 feet. Not threatening, but the geometry of the flight path placed it precisely along the carrier's port approach corridor. The same corridor Abraham Lincoln's own defensive systems would prioritize in any threat assessment. An MH-60R Seahawk from the carrier's air wing was already airborne. Both helicopters were now operating in the same airspace. 4 miles of separation, 2 flags, same sky. Neither crew communicated. Neither aircraft made an aggressive move. But the Z-9 sensors were active and recording, and what they were recording was not the carrier's hull. They were mapping her electromagnetic environment, her radar emissions, her defensive sensor coverage gaps, the exact electronic geography of a Nimitz-class carrier's operational bubble from an approach vector that no satellite could replicate. Then something changed everything. deep beneath the formation, at a depth that placed it below the thermal layer where passive sonar resolution degrades. Abraham Lincoln's acoustic systems registered a contact that should not have been there. A submarine. Not Iranian, not American. The acoustic signature was consistent with a Plan Type 039B, a Yuan-class diesel-electric boat running on battery propulsion at near zero speed. The contact was not moving. It was holding station directly beneath the carrier's track. The timestamp on the first acoustic return was cross-referenced with the formation's entry log. The submarine had been on station for 14 hours. It was there before the surface ships arrived. It was there before Abraham Lincoln entered the area. It had been lying in silence beneath the Persian Gulf's thermal layer in international waters, waiting, not for a confrontation, but for a carrier. Everything the analysts thought they understood about this encounter collapsed in that moment. China had not sent 2 warships to observe USS Abraham Lincoln. China had sent 3 assets, 2 visible, 1 invisible, to conduct the most comprehensive peacetime intelligence operation ever run against a U.S. carrier in the Persian Gulf. The surface ships were the distraction. The submarine was the mission. The assumption that had anchored every assessment of this encounter, that China was here to be seen, to signal presence, to project confidence, was structurally wrong. China was here to listen. The targeting emission at 0247. The Z-9's anomalous flight path. The surface formation's precise positioning relative to Abraham Lincoln's sensor coverage arcs. Every element of this encounter that had appeared to be signaling was simultaneously performing a secondary function, building a complete operational intelligence package on the most powerful carrier strike group the United States Navy currently had deployed in the region. The Hahat and the Zhaozhuang were not warships conducting a presence patrol. They were sensor platforms, running a collection operation with the submarine as their anchor point. And Abraham Lincoln had been inside that collection operation since before she arrived. In Bahrain, the 5th Fleet Operations Center was processing the encounter data in real time. The submarine contact report changed the classification of the entire event. What had been logged as a routine great power naval interaction was now being reviewed as a coordinated multi-domain intelligence collection operation conducted against a U.S. carrier in waters where the United States had operated without this kind of challenge for 4 decades. The legal status had not changed. Everything China did was conducted in international waters under recognized maritime law. No hostile act had been committed. No engagement threshold had been crossed, but the strategic significance of what had just happened was being calculated by analysts who understood that the most dangerous intelligence is not the kind that triggers a response. It is the kind that is collected quietly, completely, and without consequence. The planned formation began its withdrawal at 0523. The Hahat and Zhaozhuang turned north, back toward their operating area, maintaining the same professional bearing they had held throughout the encounter. The Z-9 recovered aboard the Zhaozhuang without incident. The submarine contact faded below detection threshold, either moving off station or reducing speed further into silence. Abraham Lincoln completed her patrol. The Persian Gulf remained open. Oil tankers moved through the Strait of Hormuz on schedule. On the surface, nothing had changed. 14 floors below the surface of a Gulf capital that has hosted American forces for 30 years, a defense minister reviewed a secure communication that had arrived from Beijing 40 minutes after the planned formation began its withdrawal. The contents of that communication are not known, but in every Gulf capital from Riyadh to Abu Dhabi, the same question was being asked in different languages by different ministers, looking at the same satellite imagery of the same encounter. If China can run a 14-hour submarine operation beneath a U.S. carrier strike group in the Persian Gulf without a single reported incident, what else is China capable of doing in these waters that Washington has not told us about? That question did not exist 6 months ago. It exists now, and in strategy, the questions that get asked in private by the people who make decisions are more consequential than any answer that gets published. China did not come to the Persian Gulf to challenge USS Abraham Lincoln. It came to learn everything about her. And on the morning this encounter ended, it left with exactly what it came for.